we're using about women, about people of color, about gays, and she made us pay attention. She just grabbed hold of this issue and she insisted that we pay attention. So one night, 50 or 60 faculty and staff gathered on the steps of this building and marched over to the basement of Wiley Hall, and we had a town hall meeting, and we were there in force to show that we would not tolerate this. It was unacceptable. And I want Jessica to know that two of the culprits were in the audience that night, and it changed them forever. They became different people because of Jessica Hoover's journey. So I want you to hear her story.
Thank you, President DeWine. I have to tell you, I was taken aback when I got the initial email from President DeWine inviting me back to campus. I was pleasantly surprised and really flattered. But then, when I thought about all of the ruckus I created on campus, and I found out they were actually going to give me a microphone tonight. I was shocked. I got 5 minutes, I got an audience. What am I going to do with my life? So, my name is Jessica Journey. I was known as Jessica Hoover when I was here on campus. I owe my great last name to my husband of almost 7 years, Eddie Journey, who's here in the audience tonight. I also owe him a thank you for being up here tonight. So I was a freshman at Hanover and I complained about Hanover. And then I was a sophomore at Hanover and I complained about Hanover. And then I was a junior at Hanover and I complained about Hanover. And then finally, we were a girlfriend-boyfriend at the time, over the phone, he said, listen, if you're gonna complain about Hanover one more time, I'm gonna need you to also tell me what you are going to do about it. So here's my story about what I did about it. I was a sociology major, and so in race and ethnic relations class, instead of talking about somebody else, I decided it was time to focus internally on campus. I did qualitative research and interviewed every Black American student on campus, which was not very many at the time, very small sample size, but what that allowed me to do is document the real experiences of real students on this campus. I then created a concise list of actionable campus recommendations, and I marched myself over to President DeWine and said, I need a meeting and I'm going to talk with you about these actionable recommendations. And so we talked about those. So that brings me to my first challenge to this audience. My hope and my dream and my goal for Hanover is that the social sciences aren't the only home for advocacy, for social justice, for diversity and inclusiveness. My hope is that every discipline and academic department on this campus embraces those things and supports and encourages and inspires students to use research, use their intellect for change. That's not my only story. I really did create some ruckus. The story that President DeWine referred to, I walked out of my room in Wiley Hall one night and just really hateful words about women, about gay people, and very violent language. And I was just shocked beyond belief. And I immediately called it a hate crime, even though no one else on campus would. And I immediately called for a stronger investigation. This was not just going to be called boys being boys or drunkard men in the hallway writing things that they didn't really understood what they meant. And I advocated for it to be taken seriously. And I wanted faculty and staff and students to know that the residence halls are students' homes. It felt like a home invasion. Someone came in and told me and my residents we weren't worthy to be valued just as a person. So again, a second challenge tonight. I invite you all to think critically about student life on campus. What if RA didn't stand for resident assistant, but instead student stood for resident advocate? So an RA that advocates for safety, for security, for inclusion, for diversity, and a welcoming environment so that each student on campus can make Hanover their home. My final ruckus story. This is the one I might be most scared about and also most proud of, because those two things tend to go together. Administration had acknowledged that they were going to do tiered housing, and I just hated this idea. I thought, all the rich people are gonna be in the nicer buildings, and all the poor people are gonna be in the crummy buildings on campus, and what are we gonna do about it? And I really thought the way to change was to put students in the decision-making process. So I did my little research, and I found out that we had some peer institutions that had student representatives on the Board of Trustees. I said, we have got to be a part of this process. So I did my research, I wrote an article for the Triangle, and when President DeWine came to be installed in the spring before she even started in the fall, I marched myself up to her for the first time of many and said, my name is Jessica Hoover, and here's an article I wrote in the school newspaper, and I really think we should have student representatives on the Board of Trustees. And as a result of those actions and the work of many others on campus, there are now student representatives and faculty representatives on the Board of Trustees. So to the current Templeton Scholars, those who are about to graduate and those who still have a couple years here, I want to encourage you tonight to raise your ruckus, whatever that might be. I did it in my way, what I personally felt called to do, but I would encourage you to do the same. And for all of us here in the room tonight, I guess my final thought is just this. Let's keep the good progress going. Let's continue to make improvements. Let's not stop here. And let's not stop at the edge of campus. There are alumni, former students, parents, families, friends of the campus who also could benefit from the improvements that are happening on campus, that this is a more welcoming and inclusive place, and we all can benefit that. Thank you.
I love activists like Jessica. She followed up on what she said, and she made things happen. So I'm so glad you could come back and share that with us. Jessica graduated in 2008. In 2009, there was a student who graduated